Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe. I am so excited to be here this morning because the May update of Adobe XD is live. I've been waiting. I had a stream yesterday showcasing Adobe XD, kicking off the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge, and it took every inch of me not to scream, "It's coming tomorrow." But here it is. We are here. The May update is live, XD 19. If you have not updated yet, go to your Creative Cloud app, hit those dots at the top right, check for app updates, and get that thing downloaded. And today, I'm gonna be breaking down all the goodies from design systems to components to keyboard and gamepad triggers, guides, polygon tool, a lot of cool stuff. If you are joining me live this morning or afternoon or evening, let me know who you are in the chat on Behance. If you've never used Adobe XD before, welcome. There's my face, right? That's a big picture of my face. But a big good morning to Chris and Vladair and Bernadette and Huxel and John and Pokehan, I love that name. Jordan, Michael Crabtree, one of our awesome guests who sat beside me right here and spilled water all over the desk. I have to bring that up because, you know, Michael's a great guy, but he spilled water on our desk. Kita and Tim and Jason, and everyone else joining me live this morning, bright and early, 9:15 in the morning, the day of the May release. Let me know where you're tuning in from. We've got Oliver from Canada and Bernadette from Cape Town. It's 6 p.m. over there. Thanks for joining me. And I think in some places it's probably close to midnight. And if you are tuning in, Michael says it was the plan. It was the plan. If you are tuning super late or super early, thank you for joining me. Today we have a lot in store. So let me hop over to my screen to really break down what the May update is, and then we're gonna dive into XD and really take a look at all the cool stuff. Oh, Jordan is asking, what is the pink controller for? The pink controller, this is an Xbox One controller, has Adobe XD right at the bottom here. We also have a PS4 DualShock controller, and one of the new features that you'll be learning about very shortly is the ability to use gamepads just like this, Xbox One, PS4 DualShock, to prototype your application. So if you're a game developer and you're developing applications or even the UI for your video games for consoles like the Xbox One or PS4, you can now use these bad boys to get that prototyping done. So that's gonna be cool. I'm gonna take a look at that shortly. So if you have any questions throughout this process about XD 19, XD in general, whatever it might be, throw them in the chat. I'll do my best to answer them to the best of my ability. So here we go. Here's the blog post for XD 19. You can view it right now, theblog.adobe.com/all this stuff up here. Or they tweeted it. Go to twitter.com/AdobeXD. You can find this great blog post written by Andrew Shorten, one of our senior directors of product management. He's also a good follow on Twitter. He's been posting a lot of sneaks leading up to today, and he's always fun to follow on Twitter because he's always got some interesting things coming your way. And as we progress throughout the year, we have a lot more stuff coming. And I might touch on some of that today, but Andrew's the guy to follow that, if you want sneaks, go follow Andrew. So, do we have any questions yet? Not yet, but I'm sure they will come. So throw them in the chat. All right, so I'm not gonna read the entire blog post because that would be incredibly boring, but I'll go over some of the high level details. Components. So previously, and I'm gonna show off all this stuff in a few minutes, but we have an hour to kill, so we're gonna talk. Andy's saying, Howard, the sayer of words. Usually I'm not, but when the camera's on, I say lots of things. Bernadette XD is updating now. Awesome. No dark mode, Kita, but maybe in the future. Focusing on priorities right now, like components. So previously we had symbols in Adobe XD, which allowed you to save a group of elements as a single object, use them throughout your document. But the cool thing about symbols is that you can keep all of those elements up to date just by editing one symbol. You can override text and images, but everything else kind of stayed in sync. So if you had a button and you changed the edges to be, rounded instead of sharp, they would essentially change through all the buttons. But symbols had a few limitations. They didn't allow you to override certain properties, and they didn't allow you to resize them. Well, components brings all of that to the table. Resizability, overrides, a whole lot of things. And I'm gonna show you the power of components in just a few minutes. But just as importantly, it also leads the way for states coming later this year, which is gonna be super cool. And that's gonna allow you to animate between objects. Instead of having two massive artboards to animate between two tiny objects, you'll be able to create states, right? And hover might be one of those things. I know a lot of people ask for hover in the chat all day, every day. I want hover super badly, but hover is important. States are necessary for hover to function because instead of having, let's say, 5 massive desktop artboards on your canvas just for hover states, you would essentially just have one artboard and you would have a few states that are kind of hidden in the background, and then you'll be able to activate those hover states just by hovering, right? So we're really taking the approach that we want to do something like hover correctly instead of just offering up the ability to hover with massive artboards, right? So hover's coming, other things are coming, it's gonna be good. Components, I'm gonna show you that in a minute. We also have linking assets. So this is great if you're working with either yourself and you're working with a sticker sheet, or you're working with a massive team and you have a design system that you want to be able to keep up to date, colors, character styles, and components. Previously, you were able to link symbols between documents. Now we give you the ability to link colors and character styles, keep all that stuff up to date. It's great for stating the obvious. Thank you, Andy, for that. Yes, so it's great if you want to keep everything up to date. I'm going to show you that as well. Things like style guides. More features, artboard guides. I mean, do I need to say more? Artboard guides are finally here. I will show you how those work, but it's been a big requested feature, and guides are here. We also have keyboard and gamepad triggers. So I showed you a few minutes ago, we've got gamepads here. I will be showing you how those work. We also have keyboard triggers, so you'll be able to use keyboard shortcuts through your prototypes to wire up various interactions, which is fun. We have a polygon tool, which is nice. Uppercase, lowercase, title case, and strike through, with more coming soon. Another big requested, fairly basic feature, but it does take a lot of work to even implement something as basic as changing the text to all uppercase. So those are there. And then more permission and sharing features. So with that being said, that was a lot. There's a lot in this update, and I can't wait to show it to you all right now. So let me hop over to Adobe XD. And here's the first document I'm gonna be taking a look at, and this was created by one of the awesome engineers, product managers, I think he's a product manager, Jonathan Pimento on the XD team. This is the Compass design system. And you may, if you're working with a team of people or even yourself on various projects that have a similar style, you may create something like this. And this document has a lot more than just this, but we're gonna focus on this for now. And just to keep it simple. And yeah, Yosemite, I haven't been, but Yosemite looks like a beautiful, Paco, you've been, right? Yeah, Paco's been. Gus, have you been? Everyone's been except me. I have not been to Yosemite, but maybe one day I will go. Maybe we'll have an Adobe Live session in Yosemite. Can we do that? Okay, I've gotten the approval. We're gonna do that. We're gonna have Adobe Live from Yosemite, right on top of the mountain. And that'll be fun. So you might have something like this in your design system that contains a bunch of components, character styles, colors, that sort of thing. And in order to keep your projects really up to date, you wanna be able to use this throughout many documents, right? You don't wanna have to take all these elements and then manually copy and paste them, and then updating that stuff would be kind of painful. Michael is pointing out the Papyrus font. That was actually done for a reason, and you will see that reason in a second. Everyone's yelling at Papyrus. This is done for a reason, I promise. And just be happy it's not Comic Sans, but I'm doing this for a reason. It's for science, as Bill Nye would say. So we've got this design system set up, right? Now, if I hop over to another document, let's say this document here, I'm kind of working through this project, but I'm kind of missing some assets. I'm missing my colors, I'm missing my character styles. I want all that stuff within this project. And you can imagine if you're working again on multiple projects, maybe you keep everything, maybe you keep your desktop artboards in one document, you keep your mobile artboards in another. A lot of people work that way. You need your assets, right? So now in Adobe XD 19, in your assets panel, which you can find at the bottom, right over here, there's assets. Let me zoom in there so you can see it. That's the assets panel. There's the layers panel. So if you click on that, you're brought here. And now if you have a brand new assets panel, you've got this new button that says link assets. If you already do have assets in your assets panel, what you would do, you press on this button right at the top. This will also link your assets, right? So we're gonna hop back over here, not this one here. We're gonna press link assets. And right away, you're gonna see your cloud documents and any documents that have been shared with you. Now it's important to point out that in order for you to be able to link your assets together to other documents, the master file must be shared as a cloud document. That way it's in the cloud, it's always accessible, and then when you make changes, we don't really have to rely on third-party services. The changes go up to the cloud, and it rains down on all your documents, and everything works as it should. So I'm gonna press linked assets, and this one here, the compass, is the asset, the master file that I do wanna load in, and when I press on that, you're gonna notice everything rains on in. So we've got our colors up here, we've got our character styles, all the names transfer properly, and we've got all of our components. Again, if I hop back over here, everything looks identical. And of course there's a missing font here, but that obviously doesn't come over because it's missing and no one knows where it is. So here's all the stuff. Everything looks identical as it does in my new document. Now, of course, one of the benefits of having linked assets is the ability to apply them to your documents. And you'll notice that they are linked assets because they do have a lovely little link icon right there. And right at the top, you can also filter. So you can just see the colors, you can just see your character styles or components. You can also filter by any assets that have been created locally. So if I go ahead and let's say, let me just very quickly create a weird color here. This is a great color. It's probably not, but I'm gonna add that to my colors. Boop, there we go. And right now, so now that I have some local colors, I also have some linked colors. Under this filter, I can just filter by document colors, which are colors that were created locally, or anything that was created from the linked asset, right? And if you had multiple linked projects in there, so if I went ahead and loaded in a UI kit possibly, or maybe the UI kit from Apple or Microsoft or whatever it might be, I can filter it just like this. So Larry's saying, still missing multiple trigger controls coming from one artboard. That is in the works. And there's a lot of cool things with prototyping that are coming this year that I think Larry and many others will be very excited to hear. So those are coming. I can't say when, but they're coming. Just like winter, it is coming. So we've got our linked assets in. Now I can start applying some colors. So I'm gonna just grab this card right here. I can press on, let's say, what color looks good? That color looks pretty good. I can also select multiple. So if I undo this, I can select multiple cards across multiple artboards. So if I hold down Command and click on this card, and then Command, Shift, and then click on this card, and then this one, you're noticing that now across multiple artboards, I have the same object selected. And all I have to do is press on the linked asset in my assets panel. Oop, there we go. So we now have that in place. We can also apply character styles. So just like I did before with the cards, Yosemite, Antelope, and Joshua Tree, I'm gonna scroll down here. I've got my web header text, beautiful papyrus. I know many of you are not very happy about that, but oh, there's Larry talking to Larry, one of our awesome engineers who's working on some cool prototyping stuff. Yeah, he's working on some cool stuff. So there's some XD employees in the chatting away. So we've got papyrus as our header text, beautiful, applied across multiple artboards, all coming from linked assets. The same works for components. So I want a card over here, right? So I'm gonna grab over here, let's say this card, I'm just gonna drag it onto this artboard, pop it into place. Everything lines up beautifully. If I want to really make sure things line up beautifully, take a look. Let me zoom in here. We've got this. What is this? Whoa, artboard guides, and they snap. Look at that. Fancy. Isn't that? It's the small things in life. Snapping artboard guides. I can grab one from the top, just drag that, just to make sure everything really lines up. But again, we do have smart guides that kind of help you out throughout the process to let you know that things kind of line up really nicely on your document. So I got that one there. I might want another one on this artboard. Drag this out, pop that into place. It doesn't really fit. Well, in previous versions, we'd kind of be out of luck, right? But now, components are resizable. Now, of course, we don't have enough room in this one, but I can just grab these elements. I can resize them out. Responsive resize is on. I can make changes, overrides, that sort of thing. Everything looks beautifully, right? Let's do one more. You drag this one, whoops, to select my artboard. Drag this one over here. I can also go crazy, right? I can just delete this button. Maybe I want this button a little bit larger. Drag that out. Smart guides are helping me throughout this process. And this is all a linked component, linking back to a master file, right? So now what if I wanted, I'm at this point where I've got a bunch of components, I've got my colors, I've got my character styles, everything's kind of set up, right? But obviously we've got papyrus going on. We don't want papyrus. The creative director looks at this and he threw up, right? So we need to make some changes. Now, if I control this document, what I'm able to do is in my assets panel, I can go here, right click on any of these assets, these linked assets, and edit in source document. Of course, if it's local, you'll be able to edit right there within the document. But because it's a linked asset, I can edit in the source document. If you do not control that master document, your art director or whoever it might be would be able to make the changes, and then they would push to the cloud and you'll be able to get updates. So in this case, it's already highlighted the exact asset that I need to change. So I'm gonna right click, press edit. Let's go for Cubano. That's much better. See, Michael, everything is done for a reason. Even papyrus, there's a reason, and it's to make papyrus look even worse than it actually is. So we've got this new font. Let's go ahead and maybe change some colors as well. So I'm gonna, in this card here, this is the master. And if you're not sure where the master is located in this document, I can just right click on it and edit master component. Here's the master component. Let me dive in here. Maybe I want to change the colors a little bit. Maybe let's go for, ooh, no, we have blue or red. Ooh, look at that. That looks kind of fancy. Does that look fancy? I think that looks fancy. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to save. And now it's saving to the cloud. And what it's doing now, it's kind of, up there, and once it gets up there, it's gonna notify all the other documents that a change is available. And if I hop over here, if all goes well and my Wi-Fi is working properly, you're noticing at the bottom here, we've got a blue button. I can update everything at once if I wanted to, or what I can do is hover over, and you're noticing, see, who says XD doesn't have hover? Look, right here, I can just hover. No? Okay. So you can just hover over to see a preview of the change. If you don't want to accept it, you can just leave it as is. If you do want to accept it, you can click on it. And you're noticing I can just do that. Everything changes. There's some colors that change. The primary cards, look at that. And even the cards that have been overridden. This one down here, let me go ahead and update all these changes. Even the cards have been overridden. I overrode the button. I moved some text around. This one I squished a little bit, moved the buttons, and the changes still apply, which is super cool. So it's nice. The fact that we can finally have colors and character styles and components all linked together between documents is super cool. And if you are working with teams of people, all you have to do is up here, go to the share menu, go down to invite to edit. You'll type in boop@adobe.com. Of course, you wouldn't type that in. Unless you know someone with that email address, I'd be very impressed. You would send this invite to whoever it is that needs access. They'll get, Bernadette, XD is still updating. It shouldn't take too long, but you will get it very shortly. Kayla is saying, does XD plan to launch a feature where multiple designers can work on a file at once? Yes. Coming this year. I can't tell you when, but it's coming this year. So Cloud documents that were launched in December kind of laid the groundwork for versioning and multi-file, versioning design systems, which we're shipping today, and multi-user editing, which is coming at some point this year. So yes, that's coming. And I did see someone, can we auto-animate color in components? So color doesn't really animate yet. Maybe that is coming at some point, but coming this year, states will allow you to animate between different components without having massive artboards. So maybe color will be part of that. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah. So yeah, anyway, so you would just invite people who need access to it. They'll get a notification, they'll get an email, they'll also see it in their shared documents. And when they do go ahead and link the assets, you'll just go to shared with you, and you'll see all your documents that have been shared with you. You'll just load that stuff in, and the process is exactly like it was before. So that is linked assets now in Adobe XD, empowering design systems, iterative collaboration, a lot of really cool things. I can't wait to really dive into this and use this with other members of the team. I think we're already starting to use it on the Adobe Live team and various other teams. So Brooke is saying shipping today. All of this is available right now. Head into your Creative Cloud app. If you don't see the update, hit the dots at the top right corner and then check for app updates. And Nathan is saying, do overrides work like Sketch? That's a good segue, Nathan. Thank you. So let me hop over to this screen here. Let's go over components. So again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, symbols, which were the first name of components, had some limitations, right? Symbols were great. They allowed you to save multiple elements as a single object, use them throughout your document, but when you made a change to anything other than text and images, they changed throughout all of them, even though you may need to make some overrides, right? So now with components, pretty much every property is overridable, which is super cool. There's even more functionality. You can add elements, you can subtract elements, you can animate between components. It's crazy. And one of my favorite features of components I will get into right after this. So where did I get that sweet sweater from? I think this is H&M, but I don't know. Not sponsored, but you know, who knows? It's nice. I wear it a lot. If you're regular at Adobe Live, you probably see me wear this quite often. So this is a music app I've been working on. It looks, you know, very similar to something like Spotify or Apple Music or whatever it might be. And there's many elements throughout this music app that I may want to use throughout this massive conglomerate of artboards that I've been using. And ideally, you would probably be creating components from the very beginning, but just to kind of show you and to save a little bit of time, we're gonna do it now. So to start off, fairly simple, we've got this button right here. This is like a premium badge or a user badge or whatever it might be. And this would be used across multiple artboards, right? So with that being said, I wanna convert this into a component. And just like you could with symbols, you can right click on it and then make component. Same shortcut key works, Command and Control K, or in your assets panel, you can press the plus button beside components. Boop, there we go. I can go ahead and rename this if I wanted to. Premium badge, I can move it up or down the component stack if I needed to. And you're gonna notice this little guy up here. This little, what is this, a diamond? That's a diamond. There's also my face. It's like Inception. So we've got this diamond. This lets you know that this is the master component. So essentially, the master component, you kind of saw a little bit of it in the last example, but any changes made to the master component will push the changes to all of the instances, all the children that, where those properties in specific were not overridden. Now it's a little bit confusing, but you're gonna see what I mean in a minute. So I've got this master component and now I can start adding it throughout my artboards, right? So let's go over here to this pane. I can either copy and paste it or I can just drag one from here to here. Now this one's a little bit too large, and just like in the last example, I can go ahead and, let me zoom in here, make it a little bit smaller. And responsive resize works beautifully with components, which is super cool. And if you want to, for whatever reason, turn responsive resize off, you can always turn responsive resize off in the properties inspector to the right. So there we go. So we've got that one there. Let's go ahead and place another one. You know what, I'm gonna copy this one. Go over to this artboard, which is the light version of the application. I can hop into my layers panel, pop it right there. Now, obviously the styling of this one isn't really working, right? So we might wanna make some changes. So in this case, I'm gonna grab the background. I might wanna change it. Let me grab the eyedropper tool to white. Border, maybe I'll make it a little bit lighter, just like that. The text obviously needs to be a little bit darker. It's a little bit difficult to see. And all of this is being done within this component. So all these overrides are possible, right? Maybe I want the image to be changed. Let me hop over to Finder. There's some dogs, that's probably not gonna help. Got some images here. Maybe this image looks good. Drag this in, replace me. All right, and I need a name. Let's see, are there any names in here? That's Kita. Kita Jones. This is now Kita Jones. Perfect. All right, so we got that one in there. That looks pretty good. So we've got a few of these in place. Now I can just copy this one, maybe paste it here, paste it here. So now we've got a bunch of these throughout our document. We also have to add this one over here, boop, and over here. So it's that simple. to add many components around your document, all linking back to the master. Now, we've made these overrides, right? But my creative director just came to me and said, we need some changes. We don't like some of these elements. We may want more elements in there. One of the changes is the corners not, we don't want rounded corners, or we don't want sharp corners. We want rounded corners, right? So I'm just gonna jump in here. And if you are on any of the other components, right? This instance, for example, you can right click on it and then edit master component. It's gonna take you directly to that master component. And if that master component was not on your artboard, and maybe they were all instances, it would just kind of pop the master component probably over here somewhere where there's room, and you'll be able to make those changes. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go in here and make those changes. So I'm gonna just maybe round out the corners a little bit. Maybe the image, round out the corners. Maybe the text we want, look at this, we have a new button, uppercase. So simple, right? And there we go, now it's uppercase. Now, if I hop over, whoops, I missed this. There we go. So now if we hop over here, watch what happens. Ooh. So even though we made some overrides to this particular user badge, we can still make changes to the properties that were not overridden, like the rounded corners, or the text that went from lowercase, or I guess it was title case, to uppercase. And if I scroll down here, that one changed, all of them changed, and I didn't have to really do anything. But you can also add elements. So let me go ahead and, let me zoom out, go into my assets panel, and I have this icon right here. It's a settings icon. All I have to do is just, it's a component too, so you can have nested components and all that fun stuff. Just drag this in, pop it into place, and let's go for about 16 pixels from the side. And you're noticing, if I hop over here, it's there. But if I also hop over here to this badge, which we made smaller, XD knows that it should be approximately 16 pixels from the side of this badge because responsive resize is on, constraints are on, everything kind of just works really nicely. So you can add components, you can subtract components. So let's say, for example, in this one, this instance, maybe for whatever reason we didn't want the settings icon. Okay, now it's gone, but it does not affect any of the other ones. Super cool, super helpful. You can also swap components, right? So our creative director comes to us one more time. You know what? We don't want that component, we want this component. Fine, drag it on there. You're noticing it's swapped it across the entire document. So there are so many different features, so many powerful tools that you can, use cases you can do with components. But let me show you one more, and this kind of really speaks to the level of what you can do with these things. So this here, this play bar at the bottom, this is a component. All these elements within it are part of this component. And you may want to use a play bar on multiple screens, right? So I'm going to copy this one, and let's go ahead and paste it on this artboard, which is, probably for a tablet. So I'm going to start by just resizing it, and a lot of the elements resize beautifully. Of course, there's a little bit of squishing because there's just so many elements on this component, it's got to squish eventually, right? So let me go ahead and start rearranging some of this stuff. Maybe I'll get rid of the time. I'll just have a bar at the top. I'll pull this out. Beautiful, just like that. That looks good. I'll move this stuff over. Beautiful. Maybe I'll move these to the center. That looks good, right about there. Maybe I don't want the plus button here. I'll just delete it, because you can do that with components, right? Maybe move this stuff down a little bit so it's centered now that we have this bar at the top. Perfect, that looks good. Maybe on this one, we don't want this. Just, delete it, because you can, right? Move this stuff over so we have a little bit more room for some of these elements in the middle. Perfect. So now that we have another component for the iPad screen, we've got this component, we've got this component. This is also a component. This one here is also an instance of this master component. This one down here, also an instance. This one, also an instance of the same master component. All I did was I just resized the elements, squished some things, moved them some things. In this one in particular, I added the heart button, which was not available in any of the other instances. But even with all these crazy changes, like this one doesn't even look like this instance or this master component, right? They still remain linked. So for example, if I go back to the master component, I change from rounded corners to sharp corners. Did you see that? They all change. Maybe I want the sound bar right here. Maybe instead of green, we want to go for white. And anywhere there's a sound bar, whereas there's one there, there's one even, so maybe you want to go a little bit darker so we can see it on the light screen, right? But of course we can always jump in here and make those changes. But maybe also the background, instead of just there's a little bit of a decreased opacity, maybe we want some sort of a fancy blurred background, right? So Neil's asking, how about nested components like in Sketch? So you can nest components. You can definitely put components within components. You can override those individual components. There's a lot of power in there. And I'm sure once you dive into XD and start using a lot of this stuff, you'll kind of realize that it's super powerful. So instead of a decreased opacity, and you're noticing that they're all changing as I'm doing this, I'm gonna increase that to 100%. Let me zoom out so you can really see that things are happening. I'm gonna turn on background blur. Boop, there we go. And again, as I'm doing this, you're noticing that they're all changing. Even the instances of the components that don't even look like the original, right? So they're all just changing, giving us a really nice blurred background, just like that. And there we go. So that's essentially components. Just a small fraction of components. There is so much you can do, especially with overrides, being able to override position. Who knows? You can basically override every single property and they still remain linked back to the master component. But one of my favorite features of components, when I first realized that this was possible, I kind of freaked out. I think I posted on Twitter that I freaked out about an upcoming feature, but I couldn't tell you what it was. And let me hop over to this. So this is a card, a user card you might use throughout many of your projects. It'll probably look a little bit different than this, but we might want to turn this into a repeat grid, right? So what I'm going to do is, in my layers panel, I have everything grouped, and there's a bunch of different icons. I'm spoiling things a little bit, but I'm going to ungroup this. I'm going to ungroup this. No one saw this, right? No one saw this. Okay. So I've got all these features. I've got a heart icon. I've got a follow button. I've got a little border in the background to indicate if someone has a story. So I'm going to turn this into a repeat grid. I'm going to press the repeat grid button at the side. Boop, there we go. And I got these handles. If you're brand new to Adobe XD, repeat grids allows you to take elements like this, cards, menus, contact lists, whatever it might be, and very easily just create additional ones. So I can drag out 3 down the side. I can also drag out some horizontally if I wanted to, but I'll stick with 3. I can also hop into Finder. Let's grab some people. So we've got these 3. I'm gonna drag them into this profile picture. It's gonna populate all the cards. And then let's get some cool mountain images. Just drag those in as well. There we go. And if I had a text document with a bunch of usernames, I can also drag it directly onto the username text layer, and it's gonna populate it just like it did with images. Now, repeat grids are super cool, right? We've all used them, but they also have a few limitations. I can jump in here and just name, I can make some changes. Let's say Juliana is in the chat, that's her username. And this is, who else? We have Pokehan. Wow, I can't spell. Pokehan. And I guess that was Kita, and this is gonna be Tim. It doesn't look like Tim, but it's gonna be Tim, right? So, we can override images, we can override text, but anything else, if I were to jump into this repeat grid, and let's say I wanted this heart to be filled, you're noticing it changes on all of it, right? If I wanted this button to be a different color, it changes everywhere. But what if we utilize components within a repeat grid? This makes me excited. So what I'm gonna do, even after the repeat grid has been created, I'm gonna just jump in here. I'm gonna grab the follow button and the text. I'm gonna right click and make component. There we go. I'm gonna name this follow. And I'm gonna grab the heart, make it a component, call this heart. And also have the stories border, make component. It's gonna be called stories. Now, because it's a repeat grid, I only have to do it once. In all the other cards, they're already components. Now I will point out that in the initial, if you do this afterwards and you don't just drag in components from your assets library, the initial components will be the master. So if I did go ahead and jump in here and make this change, it will propagate to all the other cards, which we don't want in this case. So what I'm gonna simply do is just duplicate it and delete the master. That way, just, you know, it ensures that in this first card, I can make changes and I won't have to worry about making changes to everything, right? So we've got this repeat grid, we've got some components. Now I could go ahead and just like I did before, unfollow, I can change the text, but now because this particular icon or button is a component, I can very easily go in and just change one instance of the repeat grid. I'm so excited about this. It's such a small thing, but it has already made a huge impact on my workflow because there's so many times I want to override a repeat grid, but I haven't been able to do so. But now I can do so without affecting any of the others. So just add a component to a repeat grid and you can override it. Super cool stuff. All right, so that's components. We've touched on components, we've touched on design systems and linked assets. What's next? Oh boy, okay. This one, keyboard and gamepad support. So you might be working on an application like an email application or something a little bit more advanced. I'll show you that in a second. And you might have, let's say this button here, right? You go into prototype mode, just like you've been able to do, grab the button, the handle, drag it to this artboard here. This will be, let's say a tap, and we'll do overlay. We'll position that overlay somewhere in the center. And then we'll have, excuse me, we'll do a dissolve. We'll in and out, whatever, sure. And 0.4 seconds. So now, just like we've been able to do, we can press on the compose email button and it pops up. You can click elsewhere and it goes away, right? But wouldn't it be cool if you can actually utilize keyboard shortcuts, the keys on your keyboard, to do the exact same thing? So I can keep this tap trigger there, but in this case, I'm gonna select the text layer. And the cool thing about key triggers is that you can select any layer. It doesn't have to be the layer that's going to be tapped on. Just like voice triggers, you can select any layer on your document. I'm going to show you that in a second. But I'm going to select this text layer, drag it to the exact same overlay right down here. And in this case, it's not going to be a tap. It's not going to be drag or voice. We're going to do keys and gamepad. And this will allow me to use either a single key like N. Let me zoom in so you can see that. I can do N. Or I can do Command N. So you can add modifier keys in there. We'll do Command N. We'll stick with overlay and all that fun stuff. So now, just like I did before, I can press play. I can either tap on it to bring that up and click away, or I can do Command N and it also brings it up, which is super cool. Now, there's another thing we can do. We can go back to that overlay and we can also click on this little guy over here to the right, to the left, other right, I don't know. And we can have escape. So we can set a modifier key to close the overlay. So one more time, Command N, press escape. My escape key's broken, but it works, I promise. Let me show you one more example of keys and gamepad support. Let me go over, I have so many documents open. Here we go. So this is a mock-up of Photoshop. Believe it or not, the Photoshop team uses Adobe XD to design future versions of Photoshop. And this is Photoshop with all its layers and everything. And we may want to start prototyping what these keys kind of look like. We want to prototype it with keyboard shortcuts, right? So in this case, let's say the search function. Did you know Photoshop has a search function? It does. It also has a little magnify glass right up here, but just like in an email application or a web browser, whatever it might be, you might want to use a keyboard shortcut to activate that overlay. So I'm going to go to prototype mode. I'm going to grab my magnification right there and simply drag it over to the search function. We're going to do an overlay or a keys and gamepad. In this case, it's going to be Command or Control F. There we go. We'll do overlay. I'll position it right in the center of the document. And let's just go for a no animation. It's gonna just cut to it. Press play, Command F, there we go. Escape, hides it, because I've already linked up the escape key to close the overlay. And Nathan is asking, is this update available right now? Yes, it is. If you don't see it, go to your Creative Cloud app, press the dots at the top right corner, check for app updates. There's also a possibility that it updated by itself if you have automatic updates on. So let's do a few more. Let me close this. Maybe I want, maybe you press on this views button right here, right? Come on. I can't get the icon. It's in there somewhere. There it is. All right, just drag this to this artboard here, and this will be activated with the tab key. In this case, it can be a transition, no animation, and I want it to go back, right? So, just like I did before, it's gonna return to the previous artboard with the tab key as well. Press play, tab, 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 all done with the keys on my keyboard. Now, you may be asking yourself, like, we have this curves dialog box, right? We want to activate that, but there's really nothing on this artboard that kind of relates to curves. So what we can do is actually create any element, just like voice, like I mentioned a minute ago. Any element can be used for triggers. So I'm going to grab a circle. It could be a square, it could be the new polygon. You know what? I'm going to use the new polygon tool because I can. I'm going to drag out a polygon. It's got live corners, so I can just make it, you know, whatever. I can increase the size if I wanted to. Fancy, that looks pretty good. That totally says curves. It doesn't, but we're gonna run with it. In my layers panel, I'm just gonna name this curves just in case I have to search for it later. I can't spell curves. So we've got this. I'm gonna wire this up to my curves overlay. We'll do Command M, which is the shortcut for curves in Photoshop. We'll do an overlay. Pop it right about here. Sure, that looks great. And I can also go ahead, if I don't want to see it, I can just hide this. So I can just decrease this so I don't have to see it. It's just there helping me out with the prototype. And again, I can use, you know, basically any element. I could use this element here to wire that up to the curves. I can use whatever I want, right? But just to keep my document nice and organized, just to make sure I can search for those layers if I needed to, I'm just gonna put a few down here. And when I press play, Command M pops up my curves. I can hide it. I can, what else did I do? Command F, tab, tab, all done with the keys on my keyboard. Super cool, super helpful. You can also, I think I have a few wired up. Whoops. I have a few wired up between different, there we go, different tools on the right or the left. I always get those mixed up. Right, left, it's so basic, but I get them mixed up. All right, so that's keyboard shortcuts. Now the next one, we're whipping out this guy. The Xbox One controller, we also have a PS4 controller. Let me show you this to kind of wrap things up for the day. And by the way, we've got Jessica Moon coming up right here after this stream. So if you want to see more UI, UX stuff, excuse me, maybe I won't be coughing as much. We're gonna be sitting down, designing some really cool stuff using all the new features, well, most of the new features. It's gonna be fun. And we've got a you know, daily creative challenge after that. We've got the photography, do we have the photography challenge today too? We do. We have a lot going on today, it's crazy. So let me hop over to this document here. Now, when we first announced this, there were a lot of kind of confused people, right? Why would we want to use gamepads to do anything in Adobe XD? Well, what we noticed talking to development companies, we've spoken to Microsoft, Ubisoft, EA, a lot of different you know, game developers, and many of them are using Adobe XD to design their interface or design console-based applications. You might think, you know, Netflix, for example. I don't know if we've spoken to them, but just as an example, Netflix might need to design a console application for Netflix on the Xbox One or PS4. And obviously they would have to test this to make sure they can navigate with controllers like the Xbox One or DualShock, right? So let me go ahead and show you. Over here in my Bluetooth settings, do I have Bluetooth over here? I do not. But I have this Xbox controller hooked up as, right here, connected to my, there's the oh, wait, it's not connected. Double click, connect. I have faith in you, Xbox controller. Come on, you can do it. It's blinking. It was connected. You know what? This one's connected, so I'm gonna use this one. All right, But you can, let me try this. Let me hold this down. Ah, Paco possibly to the rescue. It was working, but while that connects, I'm gonna use the DualShock controller. You can use DualShock, Xbox One, whatever it might be. And so let's say you wanted to navigate between these different cards here at the bottom of this application. You might be building out either the UI for a game or whatever it might be. So hopping into prototype mode, I'm gonna select any card. Let's say this card here. I'm gonna drag the handle over to the second artboard. Instead of tap, let me actually break this link just in case it causes problems. So instead of tap, we're gonna go down to keys and gamepad just like we did before. And now you're gonna notice, if all goes well, as I'm pressing the various buttons on this DualShock controller, it's mapping to XD. And if the Xbox controller was working, it would do the exact same thing. So I can do, let's say, thumbs right for that one. I'll wire this one. Let me break all these chains. I'll wire this one to this artboard, thumbs right. And this one to this artboard, thumbs right. And you can also go back. So this will be thumbs left. And just like with keyboard triggers, you can basically wire up any element. So you don't have to wire up these cards in specific. Larry's saying the battery's dead. It shouldn't be, I just replaced the battery. And it is blinking, you see the blinking? Yeah, it's blinking. I don't know, these things are funky sometimes. I can also link, let's say this one down here using the cross key, and then I can link it back using the circle. Now let's see this in action. So I press preview at the top, and all I'm doing is using to navigate between the various artboards. And I can press X to launch that. Auto animate works beautifully. And if I wanted to, I can go back, make some changes. Let's say this one, I want to make sure to do auto animate, ease in and out. Let's go for 0.4 seconds. Auto animate, ease in and out. There we go. Do the exact same thing here. And just like I did before, I can just use, look at that motion. Oops, I didn't auto animate that one. All done with a controller. So if you are a game developer, or if you are any sort of software developer that's designing applications for consoles, the Xbox One, the PS4, other support could be in the works, and this also works on the web. I should probably mention that. Keyboard and gamepad triggers also work on the web, which is super cool. Now, I will point out that some keys and shortcuts will not work, like Command N, for example. The browser has priority because it's gonna launch a new window, right? So in that case, if you are gonna be previewing this on the web, you'll probably wanna go for just the N key, right? But these things, it's crazy. When I first saw this, I was like, that's insane, but so cool. And it's gonna help a lot of development teams and designers really start to prototype some of this stuff. But let me show you one more example using gamepads. Let me go over here. So this was created by an Adobe employee using Adobe stock images. I believe his name is Yoshiki. And he created this, very simple. It's just this little guy in an idle state, right? Like you would see a sprite in a video game. So he has this DualShock controller up here, wired up. Let me actually delete these so I can show you something cool. Oh, this is all, hold on, it's locked. Let me unlock these. And just delete all this stuff. All right. So we've got basically this DualShock controller, which is using to map out all the various animations. And he has this linked to these animations over here. So if I just press play, you'll see the animations, right? But what's super cool about this is that all of these buttons are wired up to go to those specific animations. So if I press play and I start, whoops, what I have to do is grab this component, copy it, and what's really cool is I can just select all these artboards and then paste it on all of them. And it's gonna take all those wires, as long as I'm in prototype mode, take all that stuff and just, you know, it's gonna just do it. It's super cool. Now, I'm gonna press play. And as I press the various buttons on my controller, it's doing all those crazy animations. And all I'm doing, look at that. Now, of course, the background is different because I changed the color of the background. Let me fix that, just so it doesn't look super crazy. Go into design mode, select all these artboards, eyedropper tool. There we go. One more time. Again, all I'm doing is pressing the various buttons on my controller, and it's just, look, I'm not touching my computer. It's crazy. It's, you know, it's gonna help so many design firms and agencies just like really start to think about this stuff differently. And when I saw this for the first time, when Yoshiki sent this over, my mind was blown. It's just linked up to these various sprites that he downloaded from Adobe stock, threw them into artboards, and then just wired up. And again, you can just wire up one of these components in prototype mode and just copy and paste them across all the others. So it's super cool. Also works with the Xbox One controller if it was cooperating with my Bluetooth, but maybe it's because I'm on a Mac. Maybe they don't like each other. But I've definitely done it, and I have a video on letsxd.com that shows that process. So super cool stuff. Of course, this one may not be at the more practical level, but this one over here, when you're developing the UI or interface or experiences for mobile games or console games, whatever it might be, something like this is gonna help tremendously if you do work in the gaming industry and you're a designer. So in XD, you can do all this stuff for free, which is so crazy. So let me show you a few more things before we wrap things up. We've got about, I don't know, math is hard, but we're gonna wrap this one up around 10:13. And then Jessica Moon, she is sitting right over there. She's gonna be joining me in just a few minutes. We're gonna be designing some cool stuff with components, with design systems, so stick around for that. And thank you, Tim, for posting letsxd.com. You can also get there by going to notanamoji.com. And by the way, let me just hop over there just to show you. I've updated letsxd.com so you can see all the new goodies in the May update, including design systems, components. These are all videos you can watch. A lot of this stuff I covered in this stream, but if you want a more condensed version of much of this stuff, you can go to letsxd.com, watch all of it, grab XD, and then just have a lot of fun. XD has come a long way since its beta, and just just to test the chat. If you've been here before, don't comment. But what was the project name for XD before it became XD 1.0? And then for a bonus, what was the project name before the beta? Throw that in the chat. So a few more things I want to show you is in terms of guides, right? I've showed you guides, right? So we can drag these out, pop them over here. Let me just go ahead and move that one there. And again, they're snapping. They can snap to the horizontal center of the document. And you're noticing it might be hard to see on the stream, but as I'm dragging these guides out, right at the top, I don't know why I'm pointing. I can't reach that far, but there you can see the 202 and 1371. It's letting you know how far that guide is from various elements, right? So right now, as I'm dragging it, it's 93 pixels from the left and 81 pixels from the guide beside it, right? And as I'm doing that, it's gonna tell me, it's gonna snap, and it's also, so it's kind of mimicking what rulers can do for you, right? Which is super cool. So I'm gonna just leave that one right about there. Oh, we got Project Comet. Cameron, was he the first? Oh, no, Nathan, no, Maxwell. Maxwell might have been the first. So Project Comet was the beta for XD. What was it before that? Papyrus? No, it wasn't. So Vadhair also said Justin, Project Comet. Yeah, what was XD before Project Comet? I'd be curious to see if anyone knows that. So yeah, let me drag out a few of these. Again, they snap really nicely to the various elements that are on the screen. But you might be in a situation where you want, these guides on other artboards, right? So if you do go ahead and copy the entire artboard, those guides will come with you. And you can hide them or show them with Command and Control, semicolon, just like you can in Photoshop. Oh, Tim is saying Sparkler, yes. So before Project Comet, it was Project Sparkler. So you can do that. You can copy and paste artboards and those guides will come with you. But what if you already have artboards created? So I've got, there we go. So I've got these 2 other artboards and I want these guides to kind of come over with me. So with that artboard selected, I'm gonna go up to the view menu, go down to guides, and then copy the guides. And now what I can do is simply select both of these artboards. I can either drag out a selection around them or click on one artboard, hold down Shift, click on another, and then view, guides, paste guides, and they all come over. So it's super helpful. And of course, this one was overridden, so I'm just gonna move this over, make some overrides to my guides. There we go. Make some changes to this. Oops, I moved it. There we go. Great. So we've got about 3 minutes left. If you do have any last questions about the XD 19 update, definitely throw them in the chat. I did see a lot of people asking about dark mode. No dark mode yet. We do have some other priorities to tackle, such as components, states are coming, more prototyping features, more text transformation features. This year's gonna be good. Even though this has been a massive update, we have even more things in plan. Live collaboration, versioning, a lot of cool stuff. And we're not even halfway through the year, so it's gonna be a good year for XD. So let me very quickly recap what we've done today. We've done a lot. So we've basically covered linked assets, creating design systems, sticker sheets, that sort of thing, to be able to load your assets into a project like this, keep everything up to date. And again, if I did wanna make some changes, I can always go ahead and, so it's already in my assets panel. This is it right here. I can right click, edit and source document. It's gonna take me directly to that asset over here. I can right click, edit. Let's go back to Papyrus, because I know you all love Papyrus. I'm gonna save this file, and then when it does save, I'm gonna hop back over to my other document. There we go. And you're gonna notice it's gonna let me know that a change has been made. Press on it, and then it applies it to my entire document. And Papyrus lives on for another day. So Arbor saying auto animate overlays would be good. That would be pretty cool. Any other questions? Nope, probably not. All right, so that's, yeah, so we did, yeah, there's a lot. If you missed any of it, go back, watch the stream, check out letsxd.com. I got some great content on there. You can watch pretty much all of these features in a fairly condensed version. There'll be more videos coming soon. Josh is asking, when will we get real-time collaboration? This year. Can't tell you when, but this year alongside versioning. So that'll be it. XD19 is in the wild. Check out the update, download it, have some fun with it. Let us know if you have any questions. I'll be here in just a few minutes with Jessica Moon. I'm gonna get some more tea because I can't breathe. I don't know if tea's gonna help that. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and hanging out. And I'll see you all next time.